Thank you. You guys are just wonderful. I want to tell you, Mr. President, that the youngest singer is 6 years old. You know, the Children of the World Choir really represents why we're here, why you're here, why the President is here, and why our Congressman Brad Sherman is here, and our First Lady, our wonderful First Lady, Sharon Davis. In 1993, I was sitting in children's court next to a grandmother. The grandmother showed me pictures of a child that was bruised from head to toe. She desperately wanted to alert the courts that this child should not be returned to the father that abused their child so badly. I sat there and felt so badly because when she came out of the courtroom, she told me that that child was returned to the abusive father. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in children's court, and the same grandmother was there. This time, she told me the child was dead on arrival the day before. That child was Lance Helm, and that woman was Gail Helm. After she told me that, I looked around at all the children in children's court, one of whom was my own child, but not yet my own child. And I saw the look of sadness and despair, something that we should never see in our children. It took a president like Bill Clinton to take on a cause that didn't necessarily have the entire world behind him on, because this cause was the cause of those that were considered discarded, those children at risk that we never hear about, that fill our penitentiaries eventually. Our president is a hero because he took that cause, and in 1997, he changed the law. And because of him, a lot of the children that are here today are here today. He saved them. Our president paved the road for me and Sharon, our First Lady, and our governor to take it on to the next level. And we have been committed, not only here in Los Angeles, in California, but in the nation, and now across the entire world. We have started an organization called the Children's UN. Its intent is to be proactive for children across the entire world. I want to tell you something. You being here today are fellow Democrats. And you being here today symbolize what the Democratic Party is all about. The Democratic Party is the heart and soul and the conscience of the people of the world. We have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to the most precious resource in the entire world and on our planet, and that is to our children. And I want to tell you something else. I'm about to introduce somebody who has gone out on a limb in every direction to make sure that everybody has health as a human right, that children have health and shelter as a human right. The most committed human being I know, my soulmate, my partner, and the love of my life, who I'm about to introduce you, Mr. Richard Ziman.
Woo! Brad Sherman, that's why we're here. We don't know how elections go. We don't know if those elections are going to elect this president or that president, this senator or that senator. But I'm sure President Clinton will tell us it's most important that we recapture not only the House, but the Senate. But recapturing the House is every step of the way, and we have to make sure that Brad Sherman is reelected to the House. Now, Brad Sherman is a serious guy. Serious guy. He sits on the Committee on Banking and Financial Services and on International Relations. I mean, think about it. He's a member of the Presidential Commission in the Holocaust Awards. He served in the Budget Committee of 1997. He's a strong advocate for fiscal responsibility, a balanced budget, or a budget surplus, federal aid to education, strong on environment. We all know environment is a very key issue going forward. Strong on environment, expansion of our national parks, forests, and wildlife refuges. Originally, Brad was elected to the California State Board of Equalization in 1990. He was re-elected in 1994, and he was chairman of the Board of Equalization in 1991 through 1995. He's a lawyer. He's got a JD from Harvard Law School. He's got a BA, summa cum laude, from UCLA. All that stuff we forget about a long time ago that all of us had. But he is someone that we need to make sure is reelected to Congress. He's watching out for us. He's our man. We must go the extra yard. And with that, Brad Sherman.
Hello, I'm Brad Sherman from America's best named city, Sherman Oaks. And this is a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day in America. We have the lowest unemployment rate in 30 years, the lowest crime rate in 26 years, the lowest welfare rate in 32 years, the lowest minority unemployment since those records were maintained, the highest level of home ownership in our history. The Dow's over 10,000, and I've only been in office for 2.5 years. Folks, we're here really to pay homage to the man who actually deserves credit for all that. A man who had the rare wisdom and the even rarer political courage to say no to Republican giveaways and risky multi-trillion-dollar tax cuts. And a man who had the even greater, perhaps, political courage to say no to people in our own party when they proposed things that we couldn't afford at the time. We are here with the man who took the largest deficit in our history and turned it into the largest surplus, who led us out of the deepest recession in most of our lifetimes and took us to the longest peacetime expansion in the history of this country. A man who has taught us that federal fiscal responsibility can do more for economic expansion than 100 Republican business incentives, and can do more, frankly, than 100 Great Society programs for the poor. Now, we have accepted the economic medicine that no other physician had the courage to prescribe or the skill to administer. And we have achieved economic health. We now have the resources to make sure that every child in America gets the tools they need to succeed. We have the confidence to lead the world toward democracy and human rights, and we have the vitality to take on the environmental challenges of the future. We can strengthen our Clean Air Act and fund our clean water programs. We can implement restrictions on greenhouse gases, adopt and implement the Kyoto Protocol, and stop global warming. And we can protect our environmentally sensitive lands from coast to coast. My proudest moment in Congress was when I authored and got passed the Sherman Amendment to the '97 budget agreement, which implemented the President's proposal to provide $700 million to acquire environmentally sensitive lands around this country. And here in Los Angeles, we have our own national park, the Santa Monica Mountains, worked on for so many years by so many. See Zev Yaroslavsky back there is one of many. And we've now worked on this very hard, but I think the proudest accomplishment for our area is that we secured the funds to complete the backbone trail through the Santa Monica Mountains, connecting all the various parcels, so that those of you who are in a lot better shape than I am can take a 65-mile hike from Santa Monica all the way out to Point Mugu through the mountains. And it's also a wildlife corridor, so that animals can move from one protected parcel to another, and so that our furry friends no longer have to date their cousins. Folks, I've got a lot of people to thank here today. Richard and Daphne Ziman, who have opened their home, opened their hearts. Daphne's created one spectacular event. To Cheryl and Chaim Saban, our co-hosts. To YPO, to Democrats for Israel, to my friends in the Indo-American community, the Korean-American community, the Armenian-American community. So many people who united in '96 to get me elected, thank you for being here. I want to thank the White House staff. I especially want to thank my own family and to thank my own staff, who in 3 weeks assembled all of you and simultaneously put up with me. And I want to thank so many of my colleagues in elective office who have come here today. I see Controller Kathleen Connell. Our Attorney General Bill Lockyer. Zev, who I've mentioned. City Attorney Jim Hahn, Councilwoman Laura Chick. I hear Gil Garcetti is here.
Yeah.
Michael Fuhrer is here. And a host of city council members from my own area. I'll miss some of them. We've got council members Richoff and Pavley and Cooperberg and Washburn raising his hand and Leslie Devine. And Barzhowski and Craig, huh? Craig, and everybody else is raising their and what?
Sheila Q.
Sheila's there.
Sheila Q.
Sheila, you need stilts.
Hey, come on up here, Sheila. I want everybody.
And Janet Lee. We've got so many people here. If I miss some, we'll try to make an announcement later so that we can acknowledge all of the elected officials that are here. And Sharon, your husband just signed one of Sheila's bills?
Yay, here is the Children's Hero of California, Sheila Q.
Well, and most of all, I have to thank the most hardworking, the most patient chief executive this country could ever imagine. A man who came here today for me and allows me to predict to you that the most Republican district in Los Angeles County held by a Democrat will continue to be held by a Democrat. And that Democrat will be serving in a Democratic majority that will pass a Patient's Bill of Rights, will pass gun control, will pass campaign finance reform, and the Hate Crimes Act. My friends, with us today is the man who I believe historians will select as the American that did more than anyone else in the latter half of the 20th century to improve our country and improve our world. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me first of all say to Dick and Daphne, Brad Sherman said I was patient. I could have stayed up there all day. I'm looking at you and all your happy faces and the kids on the trampoline and the other kids in the playhouse back there and these beautiful children who sang for us and somebody back up there with half a dozen saxophones. It must be a wise person. In this beautiful, beautiful setting. And so let me begin by just thanking you all for coming. I thank our Attorney General Bill Lockyer and Comptroller Kathleen Connell and of course our wonderful First Lady Sharon Davis for being here. And I want to say I just got off the phone with Hillary a few moments ago and we admire so much the work that Daphne has done and the prodding of us she has done to try to change the laws of our country, to make adoption easier and to do what is always in the best interest of the children. And she has played a genuine national role in that. And that is a very elegant way of saying I never saw her, that she wasn't pushing me to do the right thing. And I want to thank her for that very much. Thank you. I want to say that I'm glad to be here for Brad Sherman too, because, well, you would know why if Brad Sherman had ever asked you to do anything. I mean, he's really a perfect congressman. If Brad Sherman asks you to do something, you can do it now, or you can do it then. After he is not on you for months or years or however long it takes, eventually when he asks you to do something, if it involves his work, you will do it. So I've learned to do it sooner rather than later. It saved me a lot of trouble and I've had a lot of fun. But you should know that he genuinely is, I think, one of the most energetic and effective members of the United States Congress with a great future, very much liked by all of us and very much trusted by all of us. So I thank you for being here for him. And in a larger sense, I thank you for being here for what his election represents. You know, Brad was reading off those statistics and he was very kind to do so. But I would like to ask you to think about something else. Remember what it was like in California in 1992. We had a bad economy, a terribly, terribly fractious social climate here, a lot of tensions between the races. We had a sense of drift and division, and the politics of the National Republican Party were basically designed to divide the country up between us and them, and as long as their us was bigger than our them, they won, and who cared what the consequences were. And Al Gore and I came to the people of California and the United States and said, we would like to try a different way. We're sick of all this division. We think there can be a unifying theory of American citizenship in our American community. We believe, for example, that we could reduce and get rid of this deficit, which is crippling our economy, and still continue to invest in education and the environment, things that are important. We believe we could help business and labor. We believe we could grow the economy and actually clean up the environment, given the technological advances of recent years. And on and on. And you know, when I came here in '92, it was an argument. That is, we made an argument, and they made an argument. And thank God you agreed with us. And you gave us a chance to serve. But nobody knew whether we were right or not, because they had been in for so long. And you heard those statistics Brad reeled off. I just want to say them again. not to give myself credit, but to give the American people credit. A unifying, community-oriented, balanced view of America that gives us all a chance to bring out the best in one another and to work together works. It's given us the lowest unemployment in 29 years, the lowest welfare rolls in 32 years, the lowest crime rates in 26 years, the lowest poverty rates in 20 years, and the first back-to-back budget surpluses in 42 years. So it's not an argument anymore. There is evidence. This way works. It works better than the other way. And let me say, the land is cleaner, the water's cleaner, the air's cleaner, the food is safer. We set aside more land than any administration except those of Franklin and Theodore Roosevelt. And we didn't hurt business. The previous president vetoed the Family and Medical Leave Act. I signed it. 15 million people took advantage of it. They said it was bad for business. Every year there's been a record number of new small businesses. The previous administration vetoed the Brady Bill. I signed it, and the ban on assault weapons. They said hunters were going to lose their weapons. That didn't happen, but 400,000 people with criminal records did lose their weapons, and that's one of the reasons we got the lowest crime rate in 26 years. So I say to you, you have to see this election in 2000, Brad Sherman's election, and all these others in that context. We made an argument in 1992. In year 2000, there is no argument. We have evidence. The question is, will the American people act on the evidence, or will they once again be vulnerable to the siren songs that the Republicans put out? Now, what I think I should be doing primarily is not out here politicking, because I'm not on the ballot. What I do most of the time is just try to give you every day I've got left to be the best president I can. But let me tell you, you need to know that when we brought our economic program forward, 100% of the Republicans opposed it. When we brought our crime program forward, 90% of them were against it. When they passed welfare reform, I had to veto it twice because they didn't guarantee medical care and food for the children of the families on welfare we were requiring to move to work. They are still fighting us every step of the way on the environment. And I could go on and on and on. We have a different view of America's future. It is a deeply and honestly held difference. I don't say that I don't question their motives, but I think they're wrong, and now we have evidence that they're wrong. But the one thing I like about the Republicans is they are undeterred by the evidence. They go right on. They go right on. You know, and you know, we have, our prosperity has been indiscriminate. We've let the Republicans make money too. Why do you think Governor Bush has so much money in his campaign treasury? I've been thinking of listing that as one of the seminal accomplishments of my economic policies, the George Bush campaign treasury. So they're never in doubt. It doesn't matter what the evidence is, but the rest of us, we have to act on that. So I'm trying to get the Congress today to deal with the challenge of the aging of America. We're going to double the number of people over 65 in the next 30 years. We ought to take the opportunity now to save Social Security, save Medicare, add a prescription drug coverage to the Medicare program. 3/4 of the seniors in this country can't afford it. We ought to do that. We're for it, and they're not. As California knows, we have the largest, most diverse student population in history. We ought to take this opportunity to give all the students who need it not only high standards and accountability, but the summer school and after school and mentoring programs they need. We need more teachers, and we need more modern schools. We've got a program to do all three of those things. The Democrats are for it, and they're fighting us every single step of the way. I'll tell you an interesting thing. It was a big issue in California last time. We made a down payment right before the election in 1998 on putting 100,000 teachers in the schools for smaller classes. And the Republicans voted with us right before the election. And then they all went home and said, we voted for 100,000 teachers, and this is a great thing, and this is like a Republican program. There is no bureaucracy here. It is wonderful. You know what they just did? They refused to continue the commitment, and they undid it. Why? Because this is not an election year, and they don't want the Democrats to be able to say they did anything for our children. Doesn't anybody care about whether it's good for the kids or not? Isn't there anybody in their party that'll say, to heck with the politics, we did it in '98 when we wanted votes, it was the right thing then, for kids it's still the right thing. There are serious and deep differences up there. And Washington is a long way from California, but what Gray Davis and all these other fine state and local officials can do is shaped to some extent by what we do. On the environment, last year we spent $400,000 complying with subpoenas from one Republican subcommittee in the House of Representatives because they thought our attempts to fight global warming and promote energy conservation and alternative sources of energy was some sort of deep conspiracy to wreck the economy of the United States. Now, you have no idea, however bad you think it is, multiply it by 3 or 4. We are 5 seats away from a majority in the House of Representatives. They will not vote to close the gun show loophole. They have kept 2 years. They let 2 years go by until we could vote on a Patient's Bill of Rights, which finally we're going to get a vote on this week.
Yes.
We are 5 votes away from a majority. We can't lose a guy like Brad Sherman. And we can pick up 3 or 4 more seats in California if you will fight. But I would just say, if you believe we ought to meet the challenges of the future, if you are for dealing with the challenge of the aging of America, if you're for giving all these kids a world-class education, if you're for putting America back in the lead to a safe and healthy environmental future, if you're pleased that we got the lowest crime rate in 26 years, but you would like America to be the safest big country in the world, if it bothers you that not everybody in America has participated in our prosperity, and you think every person who's willing to work ought to have a chance to be a part of our successful free enterprise system, and you want us to do something for the poor to give them a chance to, if you believe that we are all one people without regard to our race or our gender or our religion or our sexual orientation, and we ought to all be part of America's future, and you're sick and tired of the politics of division, and you want us to pass the Employment Non-Discrimination Act and the Hate Crimes Prevention Act, and in a larger sense, you want us to stand for these things around the world, if you thought we were right to try to stop ethnic cleansing in Bosnia and Kosovo, and to try to bring peace to the Middle East and Northern Ireland, and to do our best to diffuse the tensions between India and Pakistan, if you believe that ought to be America's role at home and abroad, and you don't want to see us go into the 21st century, everybody hooked up to a modern computer, and everybody hooked down and held down by paralyzing primitive hatreds, then you ought to be a Democrat, and you ought to be for Brad Sherman and taking back to Congress and holding the White House and helping us to build the country this nation